Stories podcast. I'm your host, Grace Costa, a commercial photographer of over 2 decades, a photo-based artist, and a photography mentor. This podcast opens up a secret diary about the world of the photography industry. We'll bring you inspiring interviews with industry professionals, as well as stories and tips to help you propel through your photography journey, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro. Thanks for joining me today. Now let's open the latest diary. Hi friends, welcome to the first episode of season 2. Thanks so much for coming along the journey with me and sticking around. If you're a first-time listener, we have 20 episodes in season 1 for you to catch up on. But in this season, we'll have a variety of different photographer guests sharing their side of the industry with us, as well as experts from the business side of things and solo episodes from me. But during the break between season 1 and now, the most important thing I want to share with you that happened for me in my career, I became a finalist in the National Photographic Portrait Prize for the second time. So this is a super big achievement for me and really important for me in my career. They selected 47 finalists out of about 3,000 entries to go on show inside the National Portrait Gallery for a 3-month exhibition. They announced the winners of all the prizes at an opening night where my friends and family joined me in celebrating the industry. Unfortunately, I didn't take home any prizes, but my work is hanging front and center inside the gallery as #1 portrait. So that was a huge win for me. We also got published in the Australian newspaper, The Guardian. So that was a big honor as well, telling the story of how I took that portrait of Zachary. So, for me, that is something I want to share with you. If you have any interest in the National Portrait Prize, take a look at their website because they are now asking for entries for 2024. Apart from that, friends, I'm super excited to be back in your ears and looking forward to season 2. Let's now dive into today's episode. Today's an unusual episode because I want to talk about a film I recently saw. It's called Asteroid City by American film director Wes Anderson, and it's set in a one cafe town in American Southwest in the 1950s, and it's a sci-fi extravaganza. Wes Anderson wrote the film, he directed it and produced it, and it's the first time I have actually seen a Wes Anderson film. So it really excited me to see something so visually different and something so surprising. When I saw it, I came out of the cinema and I immediately got on my Instagram stories and told you about it because I just had so much excitement about the difference and just having my imagination captivated. I feel like it's the perfect opportunity for photographers to learn some of the elements of design from this film. So whether you're a self-taught photographer or you've done training at TAFE or university, I feel like there's little lessons in this film for everybody. Even if it just refreshes your mind about the elements of design and elements of photography that you can implement into your work going forward. So there's a few points I've made that I want to share with you today about the film that really, struck a chord with me. And the first thing was his use of color. So in this film, it's set in the 1950s in Southwest America in the desert, right? So you can imagine the type of desert scape. It's quite orange, it's quite burnt, it's quite bright sunny days, but the color palette is quite strong as far as he's used a restricted color palette. The whites are creamy, the skin tones are orange, the sky is this muted cyan tone, and overall the palette is quite a soft and easy on the eye to understand. And it just made me think of, those vintage filters we've all been using in the past with Lightroom and, Photoshop and stuff, and with Instagram. When vintage filters first came out, it sort of reminded me of that moment. And I thought there's going to be a resurgence of Wes Anderson style filters and presets coming out if they don't already exist. They probably do. I'm just not following them. But the color palette was really interesting. And within the film, he goes from black and white scenes because of the storyline going back in time, and then these color scenes, and the vintage color is part of the story. He uses it as part of the narrative, and I think he's thoughtfully processed the costume design and the skin tones and all the elements within the film to cohesively go with this color. So I think that was really clever, and as photographers, we can learn from this. So next time you're creating a portfolio of work, or you're going to do a new creative project or one image for a competition, something creative that you have an idea on, how about you think about using a restricted color palette, something that just has 3 or 4 colors in it. So strip everything back, think about a color or a set of colors that will help tell the story of your scene, whether it's an environmental scene or an individual portrait. How can you think about what color would suit that scene and use that to your advantage so that it strengthens the story you're going to tell? So for me, an example might be if I'm going to photograph another redhead person, like I've done recently in the National Photographic Portrait Prize image. If I'm going to pick out a redhead person and I'm going to use a restricted color palette, maybe I'm going to play on that redness. So the redness of their hair, the warmth of their skin, maybe they're wearing red and they're on an orange background. So I'm keeping the color palette really tight, and I'm helping elevate the story about their red hair. So I hope that makes sense about the use of color. Next thing I noticed, which was really striking and so strong, was his use of composition and framing. He is a master of the rule of thirds. And if you feel like you have a weakness with the rule of thirds and understanding how it's used, this film will solidify your understanding, because in almost every single frame, he has choreographed the way things are placed on the rule of thirds. And what's really great is the pace that this film is brought to you is quite slow. The cadence is very slow. So it allows him to bring in a single frame, and then that frame turns into a moving image. And that's what I loved so much about this, was that was a surprising element to me, because most films are quite fast moving. You know, they're just going from scene to scene, the person's moving fast, everything's happening, and it's just moving from scene to scene seamlessly. But with the Wes Anderson film, he's taken it back, he's slowed it down, he's framed every scene, he's showing you every scene so that you are absorbing it as an image, as a still and static image. I've never seen this done before. So that was so surprising and a joy to watch, because it was something different. So for you as a photographer, look at the way he's using the rule of thirds and the composition, what he's decided to use and keep in the frame and what he's kept out of the frame. I guess what he's kept out of the frame you wouldn't know, but you can use your imagination in these scenes. And the way he's used people and layering in his shots is really dynamic as well. You'll often see things grouped in threes. As photographers, we know that things are more dynamic in composition-wise when they're grouped in odd numbers. So he does that a lot within the film. He groups people in odd numbers and he layers them. So you'll see 2 people in the foreground and 1 person in the background. And so the people in the foreground are bringing you into the drama, into the scene, to lead you to the person into the background. And in many scenes within the film, there are an amazing use of layers. So you'll see when he's using the two windows as he's having a conversation with two characters, even the use of having the character perfectly placed in the window frame. And then the left-hand side, you're still seeing the outside of the building, of the room. And I just feel like if you're going to have a lesson in the rule of thirds and in dynamic composition and framing, this is the movie to study. And if you're really interested, I would suggest you watch it yourself, even watch it twice, take down your notepad with you and just copy down some of those compositions so that you can copy them and learn from them. Even he has lots of central portraits in this film. And of course they're a moving portrait, but when I watched it, I saw them as static frames. And when I was watching, I was thinking, that would be a good idea to use for a portrait that I've got coming up, a conceptual portrait. So, take some things from this film and use it as inspiration to make your own conceptual portraits or conceptual scenes, and try and use this Wes Anderson dynamic. So another thing I noticed that was really interesting is the set design. It's quite stripped back in some occasions, but then it's quite complicated in other occasions. So he will specifically build out the set with thoughtful props, but those props are placed really purposefully. And as photographers, if we're doing conceptual work, we can think about what sort of props will help tell the story and build out the dynamic in the scene. So I remember in a bathroom scene, or even in, no, I won't mention the bathroom scene. I'll mention the scene where there's a photographer and he's hanging up his analog prints, right? So he's got a little darkroom in his bathroom, and even the place of the red light bulb and the placement of things in the background in composition with the character who is in the darkroom. The way you're seeing it is layered, so considered, and the props are so considered, not only as objects, but also their placement within the scene and within the scene around the portrait / subject matter, like the guy, the character. So I learned a lot from the way he has used set design, and obviously he, somebody else would be responsible for that, but he would have a say in how that was built. And I thought that was really clever and something we can learn from as well, building our sets for our conceptual work. Another thing that was striking to me was the strength of his characters. Usually you will see a Baz Luhrmann film, he's an Australian director, and his characters are so strong, they literally jump off the screen. They jump into your face. They're loud. He uses wide angle lens. The features are coming right at you. They're close to you. But with the Wes Anderson film, his characters aren't used like that. They're used in a quiet fashion. I guess in this particular film, I haven't seen many other Wes Anderson films, or any at all actually, except this one. So I can't, really talk about the rest of his work and the other characters he uses. But in this film specifically, his characters are more quiet, more subdued, and he doesn't bring them to the forefront with his lenses. I feel like they're set back a little, not necessarily using a long lens, but they're not coming forward at you. They're not screaming to you. They're not asking for your attention like a Baz Luhrmann film is. But we can learn something from the way he's used characters in this film. And I think when you go to watch it, think about his use of characters, his use of how he dresses his characters, how he gets them to be part of the scene and interact with one another. I think if you're doing conceptual work, you can think about how you can manipulate your characters to be either really strong or really subdued and, set back from the viewer. So it depends how you want your character to be read. And I think we can all learn something from that. So overall, my friends, this film is so exciting. It's probably not the best you've ever seen. I will say that, but it is the most peculiar I've ever seen. And it actually excited me to share this information with you today, because I hope you will also learn from this film and be inspired with your creative work, and how you can see how you can still and use these concepts in your own conceptual work and elevate your ideas by seeing how a filmmaker tells a story. Because we're not that far removed from filmmaking, right? And some of you listening may already be filmmakers as well. So I think this was just such an exciting film for me, and something so unique, peculiar. It was well choreographed, and yeah, I hope you got something out of this episode and you'll go and see the film Asteroid City. Too bad he's not paying me for this, because I am promoting his film. But you know what? It has inspired me to see other Wes Anderson films. So over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to watch as many as possible so that I can further study his techniques and his style and learn from it and be inspired with my own conceptual work. Because this year I'm going to create more portraits to enter in competitions and just build into my portfolio. So this inspiration will be meaningful to me, and I hope it's meaningful to you as well. So my friends, don't forget to go and download the mega list of photo prizes and awards. Simply head to the link which is in the show notes. I'll catch you on the next episode, and talk to you next time. Thanks a lot. That's it for today's episode. If you found it valuable, I invite you to leave a review so more people can find this podcast, or simply subscribe to be notified when each new episode drops. Until next time, see you later.